submitted for your consideration. Man has always challenged nature, thinking that they can tame the elements. But what happens when nature changes the rules and fights back? This is a Nature vs. Man 2 for One Literary License podcast episode, exploring science fiction and horror, and weighing the outcomes of a dying planet, with your co-hosts, Keith Chauko, John Wilson, Vicky Ray, and Jesse Foltz. Man will forever be changed.
Hello, welcome to Literary License Podcast, and today we're doing a special interview with Lloyd Kaufman from Troma Films. And of course, we have with us Vicky Ray and John Wilson. Hello, Lloyd. How are you doing today?
I'm great, and it's so nice to see Vicky and John looking so healthy and COVID-free. And you too, of course.
We are.
Thank you. So I thought we'd start this interview because we're going to do a retrospective of your whole career and about where you were born and your background. So you were born in New York City, and what was that like growing up?
I was born to a very bourgeois family and had the best of everything. I'm very privileged. Sorry. I feel very guilty, so don't worry about it. I'm very guilty. And went to a very strict boys' private school and scared the shit out of me. And then I went to Yale, also all boys, and didn't care for that. But I did get roomed with a movie nut my freshman year who ran the Yale Film Society. Wow. So as a result of that, I started drifting into the auditorium where they were showing movies by auteur film directors. And I started to get knocked out by John Ford, Howard Hawks, Samuel Fuller, Jean Renoir, Stan Brakhage, all the greats, Ernst Lubitsch, and go on and on. And I caught the movie COVID. I got the cinema COVID.
Yeah. So who are your favorite filmmakers?
My senior year. What's that? Sorry?
I said, so who are your favorite filmmakers and some of your favorite films?
Well, certainly, I think the Chaplin and Mizoguchi. I'm in the middle of revisiting. By the way, I just got a notice here. My internet connection is unstable. That's not the only thing that's unstable.
Technology.
At any rate, what were we talking about? I can't remember.
You were talking about Chaplin, Keaton. They were your favorite.
Chaplin, Mizoguchi. I'm just revisiting City Lights. No, not City Lights. The Gold Rush. It's delightful. I haven't seen it for a few years. It's the best. And I'm from the '60s, so my favorites were John Ford and Howard Hawks and Fritz Lang from Germany, who I met a couple of times, and I have a couple of letters from him. Preminger, Rossellini, Stan Brakhage, probably the greatest visual artist of my lifetime. So I've been inspired by those kinds of auteur filmmakers, mostly from the classic era of Hollywood. Which is unusual since it's the mainstream today that's so evil.
Yeah. Didn't you say you interviewed Lillian Gish once upon a time?
Yes, thank you. I did. Yeah, I tried out with the Yale the Yale radio station my freshman year, and my mother was a theater person, and she knew a lot of the theater people. So I interviewed Lillian Gish, and they didn't like it, of course, because it wasn't the Yaleys wanted to hear the Supremes or whatever.
They didn't like Montgomery Clift either?
Yep, they had no interest in that. They didn't even know what now nobody knows who Montgomery Clift is, but I actually had Montgomery Clift make a semi-pass at me. And then I had Stan Brakhage for an hour. I asked him one question. I asked Stan Brakhage one question, and he talked for an hour. And anyway, I was the only of about 30 people that were trying out for the
You got kicked out.
They claimed I was too much of a wise guy.
I can't imagine.
I also got rejected for they had one filmmaking class in those days by a documentarian named Murray Lerner, and he didn't accept me either. I'd made two feature-length movies at Yale with a Bolex. Bolex is a camera, wind-up camera. Pretty wonderful camera, but it doesn't shoot sync sound. So we made two feature-length movies. They were black and white and basically silent except for sound effects and music and narration. And we sent these around to colleges and charged $1, and somehow people didn't burn the place down. But Murray Lerner didn't like my work. In those days, in the 60s, the psychedelic shorts were much more popular than the plotted beginning, middle, and end boring 70-minute narrative. So I didn't get into that either. But I did get reunited with Murray Lerner years later when I made a movie for my Yale class, and nobody else would pay for it, including Oliver Stone. So I did it. And Murray Lerner gave me some footage from a movie he made back in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
Which was about Yale. And it was about our class, actually. So I was able to throw a few shots from his movie. It was very nice. Now he's dead, of course. Who isn't?
True.
I know.
So you produced your first film called Rappacini. How did you find the producing for your very first film?
My roommate, Robert Edelstein, who ran the Yale Film Society, he had a Bolex, and he decided he wanted to make this movie. So I said, I don't know anything about it, but I'm getting very much into movies. So I put a few bucks up, he put a few bucks up, and we made the most incredibly boring interpretation of Nathaniel Hawthorne that's ever been filmed. Perry King, who became a star, was at Yale, and we posted little pieces of paper casting for movie, and he became the lead, and was a very nice guy. We've been friends for a long time, and he did very well. I think I don't know if he's still working, but very good guy, very nice guy. And his uncle was a big time editor at Scribner's. I think of Thomas Wolfe's editor and people like that. So and then, but Robert directed that one. The Girl Who Returned was the next unwatchable movie, and that was in black and white and features a wonderful cameo. But same kind of thing with the Bolex, the camera. It doesn't shoot. You can't shoot sync sound. It doesn't emit a sync pulse. It's 16 millimeter, and for some reason I chose black and white. Just to make sure nobody would want to see the movie. And, it's awful. But we sent it around to colleges, and what the heck. I learned a lot from that no matter how bad a movie is, the public doesn't seem to ask for their money back.
So there's always beginnings, right?
The other thing I learned from The Girl Who Returned was there was another movie showing on the Yale campus that night. It was I think Moonrise by Frank Borzage, and the poster was a small, they put things around campus, and all it was the title of the movie and the guy Frank Borzage's name, and but The Girl Who Returned had a photograph of a rather attractive woman in a t-shirt on her back, looking very sweaty, and the theater was full. The room was quite full, thanks to the
good marketing.
And of course, The Girl Who Returned was a very. It was a story about the world being divided into male part and female part, and every 4 years they come together as Olympics to determine the supremacy of the world. And and Michael Hers and his beautiful wife had cameo. Michael went to Yale, my partner of 47 years, and he and his wife have a cameo in it, and that's about the only thing that's funny. You get a pretty. They were very good. Unfortunately, the rest of the film is awful, and the Troma team keeps putting it up on our channels just to embarrass me.
Ghosts from the past.
But they lost the ending. So if you sit through the thing, you don't even get to the ending. I think I've been told.
No.
Forget that one.
Put to be continued.
Yeah.
Then you went on to do work in the Hollywood system with Canon Films. How did you find that experience?
Yeah, you got to tell the Canon film story. I really got a kick out of that one.
Well, my senior year, by the way, after freshman year at Yale, I kind of blew a fuse, and I spent a year in Chad, Africa, living in a real movie bush, with mud huts and, people dancing around with fig leaves. Not fig leaves, but cash sets. It was like the movies. It was great. No phones, no water, no nothing. And as a result, again, I was a little bourgeois kid living on Manhattan Island of cement. So there was quite an interesting contrast, and changed my life quite a bit. And quite a number of naked people running around. So I kind of like that. Being a very frustrated all-boys school graduate and freshman year at Yale. So I took a year off and then came back and got heavy into movies. My senior year, I had two job possibilities. One for Los Angeles in a big-time movie called The Owl and the Pussycat with Barbara Streisand. It would have been a toilet cleaner or something. And then similar position was offered to me by a crappy little company in New York called Canon. And at Canon, I took acid one night. And acid, I decided I would be a filmmaker and follow that theory, which is French. The French came up with that post-war. And I, being very bourgeois, I speak fluent French, a useless language for the most part. But I could read. They had a stack of Cinémathèque Français magazines in the Yale Film Society office, and in those the Cahiers de Cinéma, and those articles were written by journalists who were transitioning, and not into being women, but into filmmaking, and I bought into that. Stupid me. Chabrol and Truffaut and a couple others were journalists who were just starting to make movies, and so I thought that was very cool. And I decided on acid, thanks to cousin Acid, I decided there to be an underground filmmaker and be an auteur or a filmmaker and stay in New York and work for this crappy company. And there's where I met John G. Avildsen, who gave me my first job on a set. And I noticed that the first day on that set, I saw this. He was an artist. I could see it. So I attached my wagon to his truck and followed him after a film he made for Canon, where he literally turned shit into gold. He took a schlocko softcore movie that they were going to produce, and he convinced the bosses to let him hire Norman Wexler to rewrite it, and they came up with Joe. It was originally called The Gap and was kind of a R-rated, X-rated softcore Generation Gap theme kind of thing. And Avildsen changed it all, and he and Norman Wexler came out with this wonderful script. And he wanted Peter Boyle, unknown, and he also used Susan Sarandon, both of whom were unknown. And Joe, I don't know if you've seen Joe, but it's a wonderful film. It's terrific. And made for $150,000 maximum, probably less. Wow. And it was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay. Wow. Which today would never happen. No movie with an unknown director, an unknown cast for $100,000 or comparable budget today, you'd have to have an army of PR agents and the Korean government behind you, and God knows what else. The mediocre Parasite got to get all those Oscars. And, Jesus Christ, there's so many better movies. But that's something else. At any rate, Avildsen, he got a nomination. And I remember the first day on the set of Joe, I saw a shot that he was setting up. And I said, yeah, he cares. This guy cares. And I attached myself to him. And when Joe became successful, I worked for Avildsen briefly for free, with the understanding that if he got another gig, he'd put me on it. And indeed, he did get another gig. And he put me on as assistant director. And then I raised a little money for it. So I kind of got in with the producers. It was called Cry Uncle. And again, same thing. He took a Schlocko paperback book, something like Love Me or Leave Me, or Love Me or Kill Me, or something, kind of a James Bondish softcore takeoff. And Avildsen again hired a wonderful writer, David Odell. Where he found him, it's a miracle, but he did. And instead of the good-looking James Bond type of guy, he had a little fat guy, Alan Garfield, playing the detective, and a tall, skinny, weird-looking ostrich-like actor from Tom Ian's The Dirtiest Show in Town, which was a hit off Broadway. Very good, very good. I think we even own the movie. I think Troma bought the movie rights at some point. But in any event, Triuncle became a huge hit, and since I was on the inside, it's now on our Troma Now, and it's terrific. Very few people have seen it. When it played in New York, it had a full-page ad in the papers, got good reviews, and came out as an X-rated movie, and got great reviews, and had, I think it was the #1 box office gross the weekend that it opened. And then it got busted a few places too. But if you see Cry Uncle on Troma Now, it's absolutely hilarious. It's great. And again, an example of if you don't have to make schlock. There's no reason for it. Every movie that I've made, people can dismiss them, but anyone who's seen them or knows anything about movie, they're good movies that people are still putting in theaters. Toxic Avenger, it's in more theaters now than in the past 10 years.
It's a franchise. I mean, if you look at how that specifically has grown and what you did with that, I mean, it's amazing. It's really quite amazing.
Well, it's Terra Firma. In fact, Terra Firma just played at the not in Dallas. They brought us to in Austin, the North something venue, North Door, the North Door. They're our official venue in Austin, and they just booked Terra Firma and me and the big 200 people. They loved it. And it was made in 1999 when nobody showed up.
I think people.
Although we get good reviews in the New York Times, usually.
I think people are more appreciative of independent film these days because Hollywood doesn't really put out like they used to.
Yeah.
And when COVID came around and everybody got shut down, I found myself watching all this independent film and then subtitled stuff. I discovered the world of subtitled. I never avoid subtitled films now, especially out of Korea and Indonesia. Who'd have thought? They make great horror movies, And
every Korean movie is great. Every Korean movie, every Spanish movie. We just made a movie in Portugal. I didn't direct it, so it's good. And the Portuguese government actually gave us money. It gave us money. A company that does not meet community standards. Apparently it meets the standards of a government. And they gave us quite a bit of money on top of our budget.
Was that the Mutant Blast?
The Mutant Blast, yes, and it's got subtitles. we did it in the Portuguese language.
Did they do the banana? Did they do the banana motherfucker movie too?
Yes, by the same. Thank you. Thanks for researching. Yes, Fernando Ale, who worked on Return to Nuke 'Em High and Return to Nuke 'Em High in the special effects department. And I had discovered him in Spain a couple of years before that, and saw Banana Motherfucker at a Troma retrospective. And he came over on his own dime, paid his way, and brought special effects stuff to Buffalo, New York, and was part of 80 people who showed up from all different countries to make Return to Nuke 'Em High and Return to Nuke 'Em High. So he wrote a Troma script, which I liked. I gave him some notes, and it's all his. And it's very good. And we decided, rather than try to put it in English, shoot in Portugal and do it in English, and local people will have trouble speaking English, we decided we'll shoot it in Portuguese and use subtitles. So thanks to Parasite and the guy's speech where he said he appreciated people looking below the image. The subtitles, I think you're right. I think people have a little more patience with them. I have to use subtitles for the English language stuff. When I watch Netflix, half the time I find the subtitles quite necessary.
Yes.
And I speak fluent French. I'm from the 60s, so when I see a French movie now, and if there are old people, I understand perfectly. But if the people are in their 20s, if there's all this argot that I don't understand, so I need the subtitles. It's crazy.
When we reviewed The Witch, we were talking about that. I think because the Anglo-Saxon and we were like, I have to put the subtitles on. I can't understand what they're saying right now.
That's funny. It's really true. It's amazing.
Well, to be honest, I got some patients that I see who are in North Yorkshire here in England, and I need subtitles for when they're talking to me. Sometimes I'm just like going,
a rock band rock band that gave us music for hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm, who were British, and they made a little promo for Troma Now, where they wrote some music, and it's about 30 seconds. I cannot understand one word, and they're the greatest people in the world. So we have to put subtitles. And whenever we had Lemmy from Motorhead, he's in about 8 of our movies. We started off just using him, and nobody could understand what he was saying, especially in Romeo and Juliet, where Lemmy has more lines than anybody, and it's you can't understand him.
He's subtitled.
But later on, we use subtitles. In Return to Nuke 'Em High and Return to Nuke 'Em High, he plays President of the United States, and we use subtitles.
That's so funny.
That was great.
In 1985, you came out with Toxic Avenger, writing and directing. How was that experience for how did you come up with the idea for Toxic Avenger?
Excellent question. We had made a squeeze play about the women's liberation movement and the Equal Rights Amendment, raunchy comedy, and we had gotten to that genre faster than before Porky's. So, like all our movies, no theater would play it. And then finally, we got a sneak preview in Norfolk, Virginia, and it went through the roof. So suddenly, squeeze play was in great demand, and it became quite successful. So then we did Waitress, which was also about the women's identity thing. And then Stuck on You, which was about the Lee Marvin, it was a satire about alimony, which was a new form of
that was such a big deal
divorce
back then.
that had changed the world. And then The First Turn On. And those movies, which was Vincent D'Onofrio's first movie about summer camp, which was, and they were all pretty successful, but you could see the results going down because the major studios started making the kinds of movies we were making.
Yeah.
So except they were playing unfair, they were using good scripts and good actors. So we had to go somewhere else. And Michael Hers saw a headline in, I can't remember if it's Variety or Hollywood Reporter, one of those trade rags, one of the house organs for the studios. And it said horror films are no longer commercial. So Michael said, okay, we'll do a horror film, but we like comedy, and I'm heavy into satire, and American satire was basically dead in those days. There wasn't any, and it was, gone. And so we slowly evolved into Toxic Avenger. My wife and I did a lot of camping in those days, early 80s, and everywhere we went, there was trash and McDonald's non-biodegradable plates and cups and all that crap. So I decided we'll make some kind of environmental thing. And we wanted to keep it kind of comedy. So the Toxic Avenger, to where we had comedy and sex, we now added social satire and environmental humor and extreme violence, but cartoon violence, goofy.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think anybody who sees Toxic Avenger believes that a young boy was literally had his head squashed by the wheel of an automobile.
Yeah.
Was that a cantaloupe or watermelon?
Yes, it was a cantaloupe, Michael Hurst.
Just had to set the record straight.
And you think about like the old Acme, Roadrunner, the characters are falling off, crashing into holes, like all of that is like that humor is there. And so when someone were watching go, oh, that's so crude, or you're like, not really, because your kids are watching stuff that was, similar to being crushed by an animal,
The big slapstick comedians are big to me. Preston Sturges I was going through a big Preston Sturges phase at the time. And also Tom and Jerry and Three Stooges and the Warner Brothers, the violent Warner Brothers movies that you can't see anymore. They're hilarious and big influence. So, a lot of people didn't get it. And with Toxic Avenger, we had the same problem. We'd show it to a movie theater. Wait a minute, this isn't squeeze play. This isn't Stuck on You. What is this? So we couldn't get any theaters. And finally, we did get. In fact, we brought it to the Cannes Film Festival in '84, I think, and nothing. And we had big publicity, a lot of big posters on the doors. We put the front door of the. We had giant posters, cutouts on the doors of the Carlton Hotel and that kind of stuff. Full page ads in the trades and nothing, crickets. And then we got one theater in Greenwich Village, New York, run by Jackie Raynal, who I'd met when I used to hang around Warhol's set while I was at college. And not his set, his factory. And she understood that she was French too. She understood that Toxic Avenger was a comedy and a satire and not a traditional horror film. And she tried it in her theater, and there was a line around the block the first day it showed.
That's awesome.
So it went for a long time, and then it spread out to about 2,000 screens in America. And in 1984, that was possible. I think today it's virtually impossible. I think you have to, you have to really, if you want the real money, I think you have to go with the majors. You have to work your way up the food chain. If you want to, if you want the red carpets and buy your building for Troma, I don't think you can do it the way we did it anymore. I think it's very hard. I think you have to kind of go through the system. But the nice news is you can make a movie for nothing. Cinema has been democratized. So, we have movies, Mr. Bricks, a heavy metal murder musical by Travis Campbell, who wrote Return to Nuke 'Em High and Return to Nuke 'Em High. We wrote it together, but he carried the water. His movie was made for under 5,000, or maybe 5,000 maximum, probably less. And we paid for it. And it's a wonderful film. Very few people know about it, but it's a terrific film noir. And it's got songs, and it's great. $5,000, wonderful. And I think Lemmy's in it too.
Wow.
So you can make, the point is you don't have to go out to Hollywood, and if you get out of Harvard Law School, you do not have to go and work for William Morris Endeavor Agency and Xerox things for them and kiss their asses with a degree from Harvard Law School. You can make your own damn movies and do it safely and securely, and have a job that means something. Be a nurse or a doctor, or have a real life instead of.
You wrote 7 books on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you kind of also have given a template where I think in the past it was almost like a secret code of how to get into film and how to, like, now there's so many tools like you had given as books, you know, produce your own damn movie, direct your own damn movie, make your own damn movie. You're literally giving these people the tools in order to, oh, I can do this on my own. I can't. Now we have all these Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all these other things to crowd fund to actually fund your films too. And
thanks, John, and thank you for mentioning my books. They're very good and they're very funny. And the best one is Sell Your Own Damn Movie, because it talks. All my books are sort of half the Troma way and then half the correct way, and with interviews by Oscar-winning directors, producers, and distributors. So you get both sides. You get the Troma system and then the more mainstream system.
It's great
in interviews and what have you. But you're right. Today you can. It's not about money. It's about talent, and then how do you live? So you can be. In a way, it's better for society if you have a job, being a nurse, a teacher, perhaps, and saving a couple of $1,000 and make a movie once a year or once every other year, and then take the movie to conventions and set up your own little. Troma Now and sell your own damn movie, and because you can't live on. It's very hard to live being an independent. I don't think you could do what Troma did almost 50 years ago. The laws against monopoly have been taken away, so that there are no laws against monopoly, at least in my country. And net neutrality. The free, open, and democratic internet is going away, and the phone companies now own the movie studios pretty much, and they don't want to be able to have an even they want to be able to throttle you and me and their own content. They call it content. They don't even use the word art. would be faster. And if you're rich, you can get on the fast highway, and that's where it's going. If you have a website and you got money, you'll be able to get on the super highway. But the Tromas of the world will be on the rocky road that buffers, and the public isn't going to bother with it. The public's going to want to go to the fast-moving website, where the fast-moving platforms where they can see Iron Man Part 62, see the same movie again.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to know now, too, is like with everything that's going on, and there's been this halt. I think even looking at theaters and people going traditionally to going to theaters, and now people are watching more stuff at home. As Vicky was saying, I find myself now going and really looking at different content and like going and looking at different films and being like, wow, I've never seen this. And you actually have time. Before I felt like I never had time to do that, right? And it was like always a hustle and bustle when everything slows down. It's like, wow.
Where are you based, John?
Huh?
Where are you based?
I'm in New York. I'm in the city.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, after this Troma movie in which we are dwelling is finished, we should come and visit Tromaville.
I would love it. That would be amazing.
Where in New York are you?
I'm up in Harlem, so I'm up in the 140s.
Oh, well, we're in Queens. Troma Building's in Long Island City.
Nice.
Nice subway. Nice.
So it's interesting because like in the city, like we were talking about this, like how everything is kind of slowed down. I found, especially that weird time when no one was out. All I could think about was for film producers, this is probably the best time for them because no one. It's like you normally have to clear the set, right? You don't have to clear the set. Now you can literally be like, okay, gang, let's get together. Like social distance is like let's produce a movie or let's produce something. And it's like a very formal that's going on as a creator, as a director or producer. You're like, wow, this is our time right now. And like film industry, I think they're having to reevaluate, do we spend $30 million on a movie when people aren't going to the movies anymore? So what do we do? Whereas you've been doing that, right? You've been saying produce films that are at the budget you need it to be, and it's about the story, right? And it's about what's created and what people want, right? Versus, oh, let's put in 30 million in special effects or whatever,
Good point. Yeah. But We stopped. We were in the middle of 2 movies, and we stopped. I don't think of going back to filming until this thing is safety to human. That's our main number 1 rule of production. Yeah, and we've not had, and knock on wood, we've not had any serious injuries ever. And Spielberg cannot say that. Yeah, with all that money, they still killed 3 people. As did other Hollywood movies.
That's true.
We haven't even injured anybody.
I remember you mentioned something about the car. What was it? Was it Toxic Avenger with the car scene? You were kind of something about the roll bar.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That was a horrible, one of the worst experiences. We hired, when we do stunts, we hire top quality people. We don't skimp on anything dangerous. And we had a car flip in Toxic Avenger. And we hired these guys with Hollywood credentials, good ones. The guy who put the roll bar in attached it to the floor of the car instead of to the body of the car. So when the car tipped over and landed on its top, and the roll bar went through the floor of the car like a straw through a wet bag. Wow. And it looked like the guy inside was going to be squashed as if he was in an accordion. But luckily, he came down on the passenger side. So his wife died, but other than that, he was safe. So no problem. Wow. No, that's a joke. His wife.
I was going to say, I don't remember anybody dying.
But
no more perfect record there.
I was on one of the cameras and I saw it, and Michael and Michael, we co-directed the movie, and we looked at each other like, looks like tomorrow we're going to be selling shoes. And the guy, we heard a little noise in the car, and we heard like, ah. And then we got the guys with the jaws of life to cut him out, and he was fine. Luckily, his side was not damaged in any way, so it was just scary. But that was horrible. That was an awful. Never forget that, as long as I live.
You did a film called Troma War that basically had difficulties with the MPAA. Is this during the height of?
Hold on a second. Can you hold that thought for 1 second? Mm-hmm. About 30 seconds. Is it possible I could leave for 30 seconds?
Yeah.
By the way, what you mentioned patients. What kind of patient? What are you, a doctor? Or?
Record.
Where were we?
We're at Troma War. So Troma War basically had difficulties with the MPAA, and I imagine this probably had a lot to do with those 80 conservative moms who are wives of the Senate, basically campaigning against violence in horror films. So you think that was why, due to them asking for lots of cuts, and which you refused, do you think that's why Troma Wars probably didn't do as successful as you thought it was going to do?
Oh, it was a huge disaster. And the MPAA is the cause. It had nothing to do with the public. The Motion Picture Association of America was supposed to be protecting the public from an abuse, but they used the MPAA to disembowel the independent movie, and there are some really good masterpieces that were disemboweled, like Maniac and Toxic Avenger. And when the Toxic Avenger, to get into movie theaters, originally we had to take out 20 minutes in the U.S. In Canada, which was a government censorship, only 40 seconds. In France, only 30 seconds, and kids, the 13-year-old, could come in to see the one with the 30-second cut. So, it's a fixed here. It's a fixed system. It's always been. So it's a big problem. And Troma's War, for any other company, would have put us out of business, because most little companies get their money from banks or investors or whatever. And we, of course, used our own money, so we didn't have to pay interest or go bankrupt. But that was terrible. It was awful.
And that was one of your best movies. I love it. I rewatched it last night. I love it.
It's a great movie, I agree, but it was kind of cursed because each time we brought it out, we would get into some kind of censorship problem. Even when the DVD came out, there was some kind of thing where the stores had to send it back because somebody did. It was like somebody, I don't remember, but it was, the Blu-ray has been going crazy. That one does well because time has changed. And there's a director's cut. The MPAA is meaningless to us these days. Yeah. But they're one of the main reasons that independent studios are no longer really viable.
Considering you had Rambo and the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and I think just that one movie alone had 241 acts of violence in it, and it got a PG rating.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, if you watch This Film's Not Yet Rated, it's a great example of how this industry gets the top tier versus anyone who is like trying to do independent films. It's like you have to make this magical checklist that it doesn't even make sense, and you're like, okay, so this person can be shot in the face, but you can't have this kissing scene between two women. Got it. Makes total sense, right? You're like, what? It makes no sense.
Well, I think even like some of the Friday scenes and stuff like that got caught up in the whole mess as well. All the horror film was like, oh my God, video nasties, our children. A bit like The Music Man, right here in River City, that kind of whole thing was going on at that time. So.
Yeah. Except the thing that I rather preferred in the UK, Toxic Avenger was also disemboweled, but at least they seem to be kind of fair. They didn't seem to treat the independent that different from the majors. But here in the States, Bruce Willis's Die Hard had a serious violence, and we submitted Troma's War based on that because they had gotten an R rating, and the head of the Motion Picture Association of America whose name was Hefner, oddly enough. Even worse than Hugh Hefner, he told my partner that the movie sucked. There was NFG, no effing good. And the MPA is never supposed to give an artistic opinion. And he had the arrogance to tell my partner that our movie stunk. So they're totally bogus. It's a total fraud, the whole thing. And it's worse now because they consolidated their power. The consent decree of 1948 has been done away with, so the studios can own movie theaters now, as Netflix does, and Sony owned a whole chain of theaters. I think they disgorged it, but it's an oligopoly for sure. And now with net neutrality going away, we're screwed.
Yeah, I think Universal's trying to purchase AMC right now. I think.
Say that again?
I said I think Universal is trying to purchase AMC, if I remember correct, reading an article about that. And going, wow. Everything buying into each other,
AMC, which is owned by a fascist Chinese company, is basically bankrupt. So they'll try to dump it.
Yeah. Well, and now it's just plummeting in sales. And then they kind of missed up when they said they were going to reopen. And it was like, no masks are meeting. And people are like, what? And it's like, well, maybe masks will be used. That's like bad misstep right there. Now all of a sudden no one's going to go back and it's like 15-cent movies. Like, good luck there.
Well, now you remember Blockbuster, right? We had all these nice little shops, these nice little family-owned DVDs, like paperback bookstores. Right. Then Blockbuster comes along and wipes them all out and then goes bankrupt.
Yeah.
Go figure.
That's what happened here with AMC. AMC, you get the same movie on every... I remember Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, was the #1 grossing movie per screen of the weekend that it opened. And they kicked us out after 2 weeks because the Skull fucker movie... the Raiders of the Ark or something, had to have every screen. There were like 8 screens that they needed. So we couldn't even keep the one screen, even though we were the #1 screen in the country that weekend. So that's what you go through, unfortunately. And the theater wouldn't even let us. The Tribeca Film Festival was in that same theater the week before we opened. and they wouldn't even let us put up a poster for Poultrygeist. We're an independent movie company. Tribeca is supposed to be a film festival for independent, to encourage New York independent filmmaking and New York economy after 9/11. And they do the absolute opposite. Other than they get a lot of money from New York and suck out all sorts of loopholes in the tax laws and blah, 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 which we don't get. De Niro, right? De Niro, whose first movie is on Troma now. We own it. It's a very good movie. But, he and his gang obviously are not that interested in independent art.
Let's talk about some of your third-party distribution films. I have to sit there and say that when DVD first came out, one of the first third-party films that you released that I bought that I still watch religiously is Cannibal the Musical by Craig Parker and Matt Stone. But another thing that was actually quite big here for a little while was a French film called Rabid Grannies as well, which is one of my favorite films as well. So how did you get into third-party distribution?
Well, we made three movies, that two of which were perfectly commercial. And the distribution, we had distributors who we got no money back. So either they were incompetent or dishonest or both. And since early in my career, I had used my friends as financiers because, hey, we're only spending $100,000 on sugar cookies. And there are, 20,000 movie theaters. If we get $10 from each theater, we'll double our money. It seemed economically, logically, how could we lose? And Sugar Cookies was an X-rated movie. It was a lesbian version of Vertigo. I didn't direct it. An older guy did. It's pretty boring, but Mary Warrenov, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie. It's on Troma now. It's Vertigo, but with lesbians. And Mary Warrenov and Lynn Lowry did a great job. And we had some of the Warhol people in it. And the director, unfortunately, I think I should have directed it, but he was older and I stupidly listened to him. And it's okay. It's Oliver Stone's in it. It's a good film. It's just slow. It could have been a lot faster and a lot more fun. But at any rate, the problem there was whatever I was talking about. I can't remember. But how did I get into that?
Third-party distribution. We're talking about.
Yeah. After we got no money back, we figured we better learn how to distribute. So the next movie, Please Play, about the women's softball team, but the subtext was equal rights amendment and women's rights, which was a big deal at the time, and it still should be a big deal. Not that we have an equal rights amendment yet, but we did our best. Anyway, we figured whatever happens, we better distribute it ourselves. And lucky for us, the multiplexes were coming into popularity. And suddenly they woke up needing what they call product. So there we were with Squeeze Play, which had done a huge success for AMC, oddly enough, in Norfolk, Virginia. And so we had an entree. Now, I think there are only about 200 theaters in the whole country that would show a movie with that. And most of our third-party movies, they won't show. They'll show a movie that I've directed, but it's very hard to get them to show a movie by a new director. And of course, now drive-ins, we're getting this. We had Troma Dance, the 20th annual Troma Dance Film Festival, in a drive-in in Mahoning, Pennsylvania, and the weekend was sold out. It was incredible. And another company, AGFA, is now distributing The Toxic Avenger to drive-ins, which usually there are. I can't imagine movies that we make getting into drive-ins prior to COVID. They've not zoning things, and it's astounding. But a lot of pop-up drive-ins are happening in parking lots and stuff. Yeah. And
I think that's great.
They see that the young people who are anxious to get out but don't want to go to pool parties and catch COVID, drive-in's not a bad alternative for them.
It's also an amazing nostalgia that I used to have as a kid, and I missed, leaving California and coming here. It was like, they don't have any drive-ins, or there's like one that's way out, and it's like now that I hear there's 3 in Brooklyn, I was like, I'm going to a drive-in. This is kind of cool. Now the younger kids are like, what's so cool about a drive? What is that? What's a drive-in? And you're like,
oh God, I love the drive-in.
Get in the car, like.
Speaking of drive-in, I saw you on. What was that?
What'd you say? Sorry.
The drive-in where Roman Dance played, people came in tents. There were at least 50 tents. There were people cosplay. I think people that they recreated the scene with the young boy getting his head crushed, and it's very good stuff. It was really, I couldn't go obviously, but. They literally sold out. They had to turn people away. So we may get more drive-in action. Who knows? And I know
that's what I think. A lot of people are going to want that, especially like film festivals are, have become, like you said, more mainstream. But like Hudson Valley does a horror film festival, and these guys set up like a lineup, and like as you said, it would sell out. It would be interesting as the world, shifts from the COVID and how they let people into these type of experience, what happens from that. Because I would love to see more of those types of things. Because I've been telling my friends, I'm not running back to the movies to see that one movie I can watch in the comfort of my own home. However, if it's an experiential thing and it's something that's safe, of course, I'd love to have, I remember going to like a Rocky Horror Picture Show and like going and sitting there and watching that and like how everyone dressed up. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, or
did you bring your toast?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See, it's like that experience of, a little shop of horrors, like those types of experiences didn't, it's faded away,
Speaking of drive-ins, though, I saw you on Joe Bob Briggs. You were doing Blood-Sucking Freaks.
Well, what's his name? The wrestler, Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
Yeah, he's terrific. He's a big Troma fan. And I've been on his podcast a couple of times. And the wrestling demographic, he and Dolph Ziggler and a few others, they love Troma. So our demographics kind of cross. And when I go to a theater, they usually people turn up in Sarah with Toxie costumes and Kabuki Man. It's amazing. The fan.
Officer Kabuki Man.
As much as it's a movie. But unfortunately, I can only get about 200 screens now. And they're one by one. I have to usually go, which I don't mind. It's a lot of fun, but I can't do that now. But it's very hard to get, like Alamo Drafthouse. They've dumped me. I don't think they play. Well, maybe in Houston. They definitely don't play me in Austin, or they've pretty much gotten rid of me. But they're good guys. It's just they rather play Parasite.
I want to bring up Toxic Avenger the musical with music by Bon Jovi founder David Bryan. How did that come about? I've actually seen it. It's a fantastic show, but how did that come to fruition? Toxic Avenger the musical.
Where did you see it, Craig?
I actually saw a video of it because they filmed it. And then there's talk about it once theaters open here to do at one of the independent theaters here. There is talk about it, but I'm not sure where they are at that point now.
It ran in 2 theaters in London. One was a test. It was 6 weeks or something. And then it opened in the West End for about 6 months.
Wow.
Limited run. And it's really good if you have it. Well, you saw it on video. The job that they did filming it on video was terrific. It's very good. They did a great job. And the songs are terrific. Everything's great about it. It's wonderful. It's the only thing I've been associated with. The musical Toxic Avenger is the only thing my wife could take her friends to see without having to change their underwear.
But I have to sit there and say that, I mean, the way that the whole show's put together and the duality that you have with all the, it's a small cast, but by the time you finished it, you've seen a cast of 100, sort of thing.
Isn't it
very clever?
It's wonderful. The songs are great. It's funny as hell. The tunes are, you go out of the theaters singing the songs. It's not like a Stephen Sondheim thing where, good God, there's no more melody, you know. Yeah. So it's great. And I mean, I love Stephen Sondheim, but you don't go out singing the songs. They used to, maybe, but not anymore.
Especially if it's a song. You don't sing many songs from Assassins.
Yeah. What's that?
I say you don't sing many songs from Assassins.
Although that was a great show. It was
fantastic.
Really interesting. The guy who kills Garfield, all that stuff. It's very interesting. At any rate, we had a cartoon show that was on. In fact, it ran in the channel BBC too. No, it ran on BBC. I think. Toxic Crusaders, and it ran for 2 years on Fox and then USA Network, and it's on Troma now. The Toxic Crusaders. It's the only cartoon in history made from a movie where a young boy's head is squashed by the wheel of an auto. Toxic Avenger is a seminal movie, no matter how you look at it. And the cartoons are terrific. They're funny as hell. A 5-year-old can enjoy them, and an adult can. You know, they all have an environmental morale. And so I had always thought Toxic Avenger would be a good musical. And we had a guy in New York who, for some reason, had the same idea, and he literally wrote it and wrote all the songs. And we had an investor evening at my house, and nobody bit. We didn't hook anybody. But the guy eventually went on to put it on in Omaha, Nebraska, where it went for about 8 weeks. Got very good reviews. And another fan who had worked for us on Poultry Guys, Night of the Chicken Dead, he put on in Portland, Oregon, around the same time, he put a musical called The Toxic Avenger, Music Kill, K-I-L-L, Music Kill. And I went to see it. It was very good, and Trey Parker and Matt Stone went to see it. And it did rather well, too. It was a real underground production, but very clever. And then the Broadway producers got wind of the success in Omaha, so they decided they'd do a teardown, and we gave the other people the rights for free, and the Broadway guys paid us some money to do a real production, and it ran here for a year. It wasn't on Broadway, but it was like 50th. It was literally a block off Broadway, right across the street from the Troma building on Hell's Kitchen. But we've since moved to Long Island City. But it was very successful, and they spent too much money on it.
I think that a show like that probably would work better off Broadway anyway. There's a bunch of shows I've seen off Broadway, like Evil Dead the musical, Scary the musical as well, and little shows like that. And I remember Howard Ashman, who did Little Shop of Horrors, and they wanted to bring that onto a Broadway, and he said, no, we can't, because once it goes to Broadway, it's going to be too big, and it's going to be too out there.
I agree, yeah.
And I do think that, and I have to sit there and say, when it comes to Broadway shows, I prefer the off-Broadway stuff. I like something a bit more intimate.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, my wife and I wanted to resurrect the Toxic Avenger musical kind of off Broadway. It was a very small venue, and we were talking to David and David Bryan and Joe DiPietro, who were all for it. And then COVID showed up, and so I don't know.
If you decide to do it, let us know, because I'm gonna be there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Same. And by the way, there's so many great venues that are just, like I think I saw Heather's at the Theater of the Round. It's on 51st, I think, and it was just such a basic set, but they didn't need this whole glamour thing. It was the actual content that mattered, and there's so many great theaters that you could do that in.
Well, we'll see how this COVID thing works out.
I hope for the better. Me and Keith have family in northern New York, so we want an excuse to go to New York. So we're just looking for an excuse to get up there. I believe that we had finally got to you've got something coming out, and that's going to be hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's based, hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm could be my last film, but I don't think so. In the words of that great Austrian-American diplomat, I'll be back. But The Tempest is my favorite Shakespeare play, and I wanted to do it pretty much all my life. And when we were making Romeo and Juliet with James Gunn, I preferred to do Romeo and Juliet back in the 90s because I wanted to wait until I could be old. Prospero, the protagonist of The Tempest, is old and losing his power. He loses his kingdom. I lose my, because of the consolidation of the media industry and the elimination of the independent movie studios. Troma is the last one left. I've been pushed deeper and deeper into the underground.
I noticed that. I was thinking of you the other day, in our conversation prior, when I was listening to the new, the new emerging requirements to win an Oscar.
Is that not a joke? Isn't that a joke?
You were the first person that came to mind when I heard this. I wonder if Mr. Kaufman has heard about this yet.
Isn't that something the mainstream has to be told? The Harvey Weinstein worshiping Sundance Film Festival and mainstream have to be told how to be decent people. They can't do it on themselves. For 48 years has been inclusive and honest and decent. But fuck them, excuse my language.
They're not, you can't offend us.
I would resign from the Academy immediately.
Oh my God. I thought it was like, wow, you really don't have creative artistic license with that, I guess. I don't know.
Well, just the idea that you have to be told to be decent. You have to be explained. It has to be part of the law of the Oscars to be decent. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. They're sick bastards. Proof of which is that Netflix has been running a movie that encourages pedophilia, at least by the looks of the campaign. And now,
about the little girls, or are you talking about the Epstein documentary?
No, that's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is Cuties. It's got
Cuties. Yeah, there's a big uproar, a whole rash of shit going on about that one.
Hey, you canceled Al Franken. You canceled Louis B.K., Louis P., whatever his name is. You canceled. They're canceling what's his name so many times. I can't. North Kanye West, right?
Kanye West, yeah.
West. They've canceled him how many times? And he's a genius. So why is Netflix this disgusting? And for the last week or so, the New York Nazi Times, CBS have all been blowing Netflix. They've had so many puff pieces about Netflix in the last week and last weekend.
Right.
CBS TV, owned by Viacom.
Viacom.
They're sick bastards, right? Netflix saw this coming. They saw it coming, so they did a massive propaganda campaign on the Today Show, the CBS show, the Sunday show, the Day of Our Lord. They had Netflix on, kissing Netflix ass on CBS, right? And of course, the New York Times has had 2 giant articles recently about hashtag Netflix pedophilia.
Right.
YouTube, of course, has enabled Netflix. So it will be interesting to see if Netflix, by the rule of the snowflakes, Netflix ought to be out. They ought to be canceled. They should be.
I can't believe they got away with that. There's nothing worse than the sexualization of children. I don't understand. It seems to be more out there. It's not even like people are trying to hide it anymore.
Yeah, that's the mainstream for you. Any rate,
got off on a tangent, but it's a good one. Anyway, I noticed that you went live in August and you did a reading for hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm, and you had quite a few people on there that seemed to get a little bit of notice. That was fantastic. You did that for the pandemic charities?
We did that as a favor to our fans, to give them a sense of who the actors are and the script. And by the way, that what was being read by the cast, or at least the main, the featured players.
Right.
That was the actual shooting script. The original written script is quite different because during rehearsals, we spend months in pre-production rehearsing and changing and improvising. And even on the set, we improvise a lot. Zach Amico and I were writing lines as we were filming. What the actors read during that period.
That's the actual. That's interesting because I know people are waiting for it to come out. I hate to hear that it might be your last.
If the fans of Troma don't subscribe, we need more people subscribing to Troma Now.
Send us your banner. We'll start putting it out there for you. I know that I've subscribed to it, and I love it. You have a wonderful catalog, just a brilliant catalog of movies that I couldn't find anywhere, and you have them.
Exclusive. There's hundreds of movies, shorts, music videos, and comic books. If any of your fans write comic books, we have a section with comic books on Troma Now.
That's excellent. There's a lot of people looking for things like that.
Troma.com to subscribe. The first month is free. And by the way, we are not far off from having our own app. So a fan is creating the app.
I heard that. That's fantastic to have our own Troma app on our phone or whatever. That's great. You totally bypass all the others.
Yes, you'll be able to get onto Roku and Microsoft Xbox and all those.
Awesome. That's great.
Go to the website, but we want you to go to the website and help us out and subscribe and give us a couple of more weeks, and we should have the app up, and everybody from Troma Now will be able to migrate over to Troma Plus.
Troma Plus. Okay, that's different. I didn't hear that one when I signed on to the app, or actually to your Troma Now website, which is fantastic because I was telling my husband, I go, look, there's these movies on here you've been looking for that you couldn't find, and here it is. It's absolutely fantastic. We're so happy with it, and we cast it to the TV and just sit there and watch it.
Please sing it to the world. And right now, we're the last independent movie studio that's genuinely independent, and
basically. You pioneered it, and you're all by yourselves, which is great that you're still hashing it out and fighting your way through it because, I find that independent film is far more transfixing, and I love it a whole lot more since we started to do this podcast. I've realized what independent film is from 4 years ago, and I've realized what I've been missing. And there's just so much, and I'm not, trying to shit on Hollywood, but the independent film has so much more to offer. I mean, when COVID happened, I definitely had so much more time, and I caught up on all your movies and all kinds of stuff that was on Shudder and, horror movies that I hadn't seen before. A lot of them coming out of Indonesia and Korea, like Train to Busan. I thought that thing was great. I don't know what it was about that. I can't wait for the second installment, but that was fantastic. It didn't even need subtitles. You had action. So, I mean, there's something to be said for this, and it's. I hate to see you not do anything again. I think with 2020, you have a movie right there. You could do Troma's 2020. Be brilliant. You're probably thinking about it.
Well, find some theaters. Tell your drive-in to play Troma, and I'll come out there.
Oh, God, it'd be great to get you down here in Dallas. We'd love it. We so need it.
Dallas, I told you, we play the Texas Theater, which is where Lee Harvey Oswald was apprehended. But if there are any drive-ins that you can approach right now, we'll show up and have it.
Oh, I'll definitely go to bat for you. No doubt about that. And
sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
I heard that maybe I heard something about your wife whispering in your ear about making a children's movie, maybe.
We did it once.
You did it once?
Called Doggy Tales.
Doggy Tales, okay.
On Troma Now, if you want to see it. It's terrific. The kids love it. My grandchildren have seen it 5 times in one day, no less.
I've got a 7-year-old grandson. Maybe I'll have to turn him on to it.
I don't know what I'm doing. We have a book we published. We didn't publish it. I think it's one of the big publishers called Pests, like a cockroach, Pests. And it's we're thinking of we're kind of developing it now as a movie. So that might be the next project. It depends where money comes from, and I can put in some money, but I don't have enough. We need $500,000. I can put in 100,000, but I don't, and my services and the script. But we need another 400,000 if we're going to make a
I hope you do, because
Lloyd.
We just don't want to see you ever go away. That's the honest to God's truth. Well,
as I mentioned to you last time, Vicki, Heidi Moore is just finishing up her movie for us, Kill Dolly Kill. Mercedes the Muse had to go on hiatus and stop shooting, but at some point she'll keep shooting. Resume shooting, and then Liam Regan in England has finished shooting and is editing Eating Mrs. Campbell, which so we have 3 movies on top of Slashening, which just was finished, the Slashening Part 2, which is Slashening, the end of the beginning. That's finished, and we're looking for theaters and film festivals. And then Mutant Blast, which played about 40 film festivals, is beginning to play in drive-ins. And
that was from the. Was that the one that the same? Was it Banana Motherfucker? That was the same.
What's that?
Was that one from Portugal? Was that filmed in Portugal?
Yes, Mutant Blast. It's on rent and purchase on Troma now, but we're also playing it in movie theaters when we can.
That's excellent.
Speaking of subtitles.
Well, we want to thank you again for coming on and letting me finish this up with you. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you,
Mr. Kaufman. But I hope that when all this is done and over with, you're safe, your family's safe and happy and healthy. And we want to wish you all the best, and we're all watching.
Well, thanks, Vicki, and thank you for your support. And let's keep in touch.
I would love to.
Hopefully you'll come to New York one of these days and visit the Troma building. And I'm
going to hold you to that.
I'm sure that the commissioner and I will make another tour of Texas.
Oh, God, please keep my email. Let me know when you're coming to Texas. I would love it. I would love it, sir.
Well, it won't be for a while, obviously. But if
obviously.
we find some drive-ins, we could do a drive-in tour, and Toxie and I will show up with some Tromettes and the commissioner.
You know, the one good thing about I hate to say anything good about COVID, but drive-ins are starting to be a realization again. And they're popping up in little screens everywhere, in church parking lots down here, everywhere. Exactly. So people can drive in and watch a movie with their family.
I think that Texas also has built some new drive-ins for the first time in many years. I believe that the number of drive-ins in Texas recently has, not like the COVID time, but like the last 2 or 3 years. I think that the new ones have been created. So that's very exciting.
People just don't realize what they're missing out on. I've thought about that too, because I watched Joe Bob Briggs religiously, and I happened to, he's another, we're fans of his as well. We just love to see the resurgence of the drive-in again, because I grew up loving it. You know, it's a teenager in the 80s. It was so important. And I just love to see it come back, you know, some kind of fruition again and revive, because I'd love to take my grandchildren to the drive-in. So
you have grandchildren?
Yeah. I have a 7-year-old. He's going to be 8 next month. He's a little BMXer. We take him all over.
What are you doing? You terrific.
Huh?
Wonderful. Well,
yeah, it's part of one of the best things that ever happened to me, being a grandma. So
that's terrific, and thank you very much. So I'll talk to you soon, and
okay, sir.
Get in touch anytime you want.
Okay, no problem, Mr. Kaufman. You have a wonderful day.
Please call me Lloyd.
Lloyd. Okay.
Nice to
Thank you, sir.
We'll see each other soon, I hope.
I hope so. Stay safe.
Cheers, Vicki.
So, Lloyd, what we want to do is not keep you too long. We want to thank you for doing the Literary License podcast and this interview. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Well, thanks for the great questions and for being so well prepared. Really appreciate it, John.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
And Vicki and Keith, So let's make sure we do this again. Definitely.
Please.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm a narcissist.
This has been a Literary License Podcast production. Until next time, and do not forget to comment or share. We would so admirably appreciate your support. And this broadcast has come to you from the Twilight Zone.